Hello guys, good afternoon from southwest London in England in the United Kingdom on an early August, late summer's afternoon from my office. And followers of my blog and my channel will know that I talk about personal development, personal growth, how to live a more fulfilled and happy life, tools with which to go down that path, how I talk about energy, tapping into good energy, raising your energy, going to that deeper sense of self, coming away from the mind, the chattering mind, all these things. You can see the videos on my channel. To this end, with my journey here, I don't have an awful lot to do with politics and mainstream news, current affairs, newspapers, news broadcasts on TV, society as a whole really. And I just thought I would talk about some of the problems that I have with politics, the media, etc., and the reasons why I steer well clear of that stuff. Aside from the fact it's often very, very negative, and when you're aware of your energy and how you feel and what triggers bad energy, all this stuff does that to me in an instant. The moment I start engaging with somebody in a political conversation, or if I watch the news, which I don't do, but if it comes into my vision at the gym or what have you, and I see public figures and that kind of thing, I feel the trigger, I feel the bad energy. So I steer well clear of it. I think my job is to feel good, to have good energy, to keep my energy high, the frequency of my energy high. And anything that doesn't do that, I want no part of it. I really don't. And there are so many problems and issues that I see with society, governments, and what have you, that it doesn't make any sense. So I certainly don't want to get drawn into that world, which is a world of complete and utter garbage. It really is. I mean, for one example, if you believe the official narrative of this country, Britain, for example, it is that our values are freedom, peace, liberty, etc. And those are the reasons that we go on these crusades abroad, where we free oppressed people from evil dictators. We give them democracy, all this kind of stuff. Well, if that was true, we would have nothing to do with Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, China even, because there is no freedom there. People aren't free there. They're oppressive governments. But we're all over those people. We're sucking their kneecaps. We're doing business with them. They're allies. They're friends. Straight away, there's a complete kind of disconnect there with what we're told. That can't be right then, right? So you come to the conclusion that those aren't our values. Our values are in fact the economy, the pound in our pocket, which would be backed up by the fact that we invaded countries where there was something in it for us. Oil, most of the time, Libya, Iraq. And we don't go into places where there's nothing in it for us, but people are still being persecuted and oppressed. I mean, Syria being one example, where the the regime there, kind of slaughter their own people, and we stand by and watch it happen, right? So, and it's happened in numerous other cases. So, straight away, there's something not quite adding up there. The other issue I see with government is it's a completely flawed process. So you have politicians who are good at something, whatever they're good at, I don't know. I mean, they're good at getting votes, I suppose, I don't know. But they get voted into government, and then overnight they become chief executive of Prime Minister, I'm talking about here specifically, gets voted in, and overnight they become chief executive of a $5 trillion business, essentially, right? Running the country is like running a business. It's a $5 trillion economy in this country. So, no business experience. They're politicians. They're great at talking, great at getting people to vote for them, buying into their vision. Whatever it is they're good at, I don't really know, but whatever it is, they get voted into power, and then they become chief executive of a $5 trillion business without any real business experience. And then his sidekick, the Chancellor, becomes finance director of a $5 trillion purse. How is that a recipe for success? How can that work? And then, to compel the problem, they're only really looking at their time in power, right? They're not looking at the country in the medium and long term. They're looking at it through their governance, through their time in office, through their parliament of 5 years and maybe another term 5 years. It's never in the best interests of the country per se. It's in the best interests of their legacy, what they do for the country. It's just so flawed. And then to go beyond that, to illustrate another issue, another problem, would be you have ministers that are given a portfolio. So you'll have ministers who are given Secretary of State, which in this country is the Home Office, the Home Secretary, the Foreign Secretary, the Transport Secretary, and so on and so on. And they're often moved around, right? So you think about your career, you train to be an accountant, let's say. That's going to take up, your life, right? To get to the very top as a finance director would take decades probably. And, you'll commit your whole life to that job. Yes, it's possible to make a career change, absolutely, to retrain later in life, absolutely. But it's no small thing. It's a huge thing. And then to get to the top again of your chosen new career would be some ask. And yet, in government, you'll get a politician who 1 minute he's transport secretary, he's learning about transport and everything that entails. And then he's given portfolio of the Home Office. And then he's given portfolio as he gets more senior in government. He gets the portfolio of Chancellor of the Exchequer. So the guy's going from one position to another position, ends up being a finance director of a $5 trillion business where he never put in decades of work in accountancy. I mean, it's ridiculous on a scale way beyond my comprehension. Put it that way. I mean, it's no wonder we get into such a state. When you've got people who aren't qualified for these positions in these top positions. Yes, we have advisors. Yes, they have advisors. But these are the guys that are making the decisions, and you see evidence of this incompetence or corruption. I'm not too sure which. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say incompetence. You see evidence of this all the time. Deals with the MOD. There was a case not so long ago where some big landing aircraft ships is that the right term for it? Landing aircraft, warships, yeah, I guess it is, were commissioned to be built for the MOD. And then they went and had some jets, some fighter jets commissioned to be built. And it was found later on that the jets, the configuration of the aircraft landing ships wasn't quite right to receive the jets. The measurements, the configurations were not quite right. So they had to go back and cancel the order. And whoever had negotiated the deal, it would have been more expensive to cancel than it would have been to go through, carry on with the purchase. I mean, who in their incompetence ever got themselves in a position to negotiate this multi-billion-dollar business? And there was the case a few years ago where Royal Mail was sold to the public markets. It was floated, and it was undersold. And the financial institutions, the City of London, Wall Street, the very people that were highly criticised by the government at the time. It was a coalition government between the Tories and the Lib Dems. And the Lib Dems were massively critical of the excess, the greed of the financial institutions. And what they did, they ended up giving them £1 billion of our money by underselling the shares of Royal Mail. The institutions came and bought the shares cheap. They went public and they shot up in value, thereby giving £1 billion profit into the pockets of these very people that the government was so critical about. It just, the incompetence is beyond belief. And this is the reason I have nothing to do with it. I'm out. I don't want any piece of it. It's a broken system. It can't work. And for me, any involvement in it is a bit like, let me give you an analogy here. Turkeys. Turkeys, yeah, it's a good analogy. If turkeys demonstrate for anything other than abolishment of Christmas, so if they were to demonstrate for better living conditions, better food, what have you, they're really giving endorsement to Christmas, right? They're still going to get slaughtered at Christmas. So I have nothing to do with government. I don't care. I want nothing to do with it. I'm out. So that would be my thoughts on that. We're running on a little bit here, so I'll leave another video to give some other issues and flaws as I see them, and I'll let you know when that's coming. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Ciao.